Story then today, the BBC understands that 4 serving soldiers have been arrested on suspicion of preparing acts of terrorism. They're among 5 men detained on suspicion of being members of the banned far-right group National Action.
Now, the arrests were part of an operation by West Midlands Police, who've been working with the support of the Army. 3 of the soldiers are thought to be members of the Royal Anglian Regiment. The 4th was arrested in Cyprus. The 5th man is not believed to be a soldier.
The police say the arrests were pre-planned and intelligence-led. There's no threat, they say, to public safety. Dr. Chris Allen is a lecturer in social policy at the University of Birmingham, specialising in far-right and jihadist extremism. He's also a former government advisor. Chris, hello to you. Welcome to the programme.
Yeah, good evening. Thanks for inviting me.
You've studied National Action before, and before they were banned. What are their aims?
Well, I think that the interesting thing about National Action is that they really are a traditional National Socialist neo-Nazi organisation. So they sort of differentiate themselves very early on from groups such as the English Defence League and Britain First, that they saw as being much more populist. So their ideology was very much a kind of the ideology that would reflect, kind of Hitler's Mein Kampf. So it was anti-Semitic, they were homophobic, they were disablist, and they spoke routinely about establishing a white homeland in Britain. So this, it was a very, very traditional kind of understanding, and really one that kind of bucks the kind of trend of the more kind of street movement far right that we've seen in the UK over the past decade and a half.
You refer to them, it's quite interesting, you refer to them in the past tense. Since the government ban, have they ceased to be, or are they still operating but under different names?
Well, one of the things with this, what we've seen with this legislation before, where groups are particularly banned, is that overnight you can kind of just take on a new name, and those same individuals can kind of have the same ideology and the same activities and so on, but with a different name. We've seen that with some of the kind of Islamist groups that have been prescribed over the past decade and a half. With National Action, what was really interesting was that, there's quite a bit of anecdotal evidence that they actually sort of, after prescription, their website was removed. There was all the kind of insignia that was removed and so on. But actually, there's quite a bit of evidence that in the West Midlands as well, that they continue to be active. And one of their kind of places where they had targeted in the past were university campuses. And there was kind of some anecdotal evidence which has emerged this year to say that actually some of their members or those affiliating with National Action are still actually targeting those same groups that they probably would have done prior to their banning. So yeah, it does seem as though they did continue.
And what are we talking about here, Chris, in numbers? Are we talking about a small minority who are kind of incestuous, if you will, and continue just to discuss it amongst themselves, or is their influence spreading?
I think one of the things we've seen with the far right is that the numbers that actually kind of go out and actually do the kind of direct action or the protest or the marches or so on is relatively small. I think that we saw a peak around the kind of just after kind of 2012, 2013 with groups like the EDL, where you'd have like maybe 2,500, 3,000 people turn up. National Action was much, much smaller in terms of that. So those who were involved in their protests and direct action were very, very small. So their numbers were around about 20, 25, 30 max. What they were very good at, though, was they were very good at targeting the youth demographic, and they used social media and their website very effectively in that respect. So they would routinely use images of kind of traditional Nazism, the face of Hitler, and would have that alongside kind of brand logos for Nike and Adidas. Really kind of drawing in that kind of youth demographic online.
No, I was just going to say, do they directly advocate violence, or is violence a kind of byproduct of their ideology?
Well, I mean, some of their banners would openly state things like Hitler was wrong in terms of immigration, in terms of Jews, in terms of the kind of Jewish communities in this country and so on. One of the interesting things that was on their website before this was taken down was that they said that they were one of the groups which was prepared to swing the bat against its enemies. And so, that kind of underlying kind of tension of violence, that kind of underlying inference of violence was always there with National Action. And I think that what we've seen in the past is, the kind of the link or alleged link between, the murder of Joe Cox, for example, and the links with National Action. There's always that kind of underlying kind of element that violence is a possibility. And so, I think that again kind of steers away from, groups such as Britain First and, EDL, that are confrontational and aggressive, but not really kind of advocating violence as National Action did.
Interesting, Chris. We've got to leave it there. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dr. Chris Allen there from the University of Birmingham. It's